Hey everybody, Raul here, and today I'd like to talk to you about reinforcing. We're going to talk about the do's, the don'ts, and the whys. So, let's go over the things to consider to become a more considerate reinforcer. Let's start with pings. Whenever you die, the game will automatically ping your team in the lower left side with that red shaky symbol. So, it's not always somebody on your team who's dead, who's been dead for a while, complaining that they haven't been reinforced. I know a lot of us will see that and think maybe that's the case. Oh no, we forgot about somebody who died, we missed somebody. But that's usually not it. It will do that ping automatically the moment someone dies. Try to encourage you to reinforce them as soon as possible. Players can ping pretty much any time after they died and are looking at the spectate screen by pressing the space bar or X on the PS5 by default. Each time a player pings, the SES dispatcher will sound more and more irritated, and this communication actually goes out to not only the person pinging, but to the rest of the team as well. They'll all hear that, and they'll hear him get more and more frustrated, asking the player to reinforce. And you'll see that in the clip here.
Reinforcement ready to fire. Reinforcement available. Reinforcement ready to fire. I say again, reinforcement is available. I repeat, reinforcement ready.
It's important as the dead player to be aware of what's going on in the game. It is not always possible to be reinforced. There might be a jammer, the destroyer might be gone because the timer's up, there might be an ion storm going on, or the guy who's left to reinforce might be getting juggled up in the air, ragdolled around, and can't even think straight. It may not just be able to put in the input to reinforce whatsoever. It's important to reinforce your dead teammates quickly. In a very scientific poll with a very scientific sample size I performed on Twitter, we can see most players prefer to be reinforced quickly more than any other factor. I'm going to tell on myself a bit here. I actually do use two macros in this game. One is the reinforcement. The second is the hell bomb. Because I mean, look at this damn thing. It makes the Konami code look like the airburst strike. Now, speed isn't everything. You do have to consider location. And this is something that you should take a moment to ponder. Whenever you see a teammate die and that ping go off, open your map and take a look at where they died. Their tag will show up as red on the map, and you'll get an idea of where they died, who's around them, and where their equipment is dropped. If you're off on your own, like I usually am, maybe it's not the best idea to immediately reinforce them. If you have teammates near where they died, it may be best to give them a few seconds at least to reinforce that player closer to where their equipment is dropped. Nobody wants to be in the middle of nowhere without equipment with maybe an up to 8-minute cooldown on calling their stuff back in. Regardless, speed is still the priority. Even if you can't reinforce them near their equipment, if the rest of your team is ignoring them or ignoring their reinforcement pings, you should go ahead and reinforce, get them back in the game in a timely manner. Let's take a moment to talk about team killing. If you team kill, and it's obvious, such as a stray bullet, or an impact grenade, or some other method where you very clearly killed your teammate, it's best to reinforce quickly, apologize, and move on. And most reasonable players will accept that and it'll be no big deal. If you use things like the 380HE or cluster bombs or the gas strike, be very mindful of deaths that occur after you throw those stratagems, because it might not be as obvious that you killed someone. But if they're dropping, that might be on you, bro. You'll also need to be very careful if you're using weapons like the Breaker Incendiary, or the Flamethrower, or the Arc Thrower, or the Blitzer. These weapons can one-shot kill your teammates, and they're awful wild. They could go anywhere, and you never know. So keep an eye out for deaths, keep an eye out for those who need reinforcing, and be ready to say, I'm sorry, bro. When preparing to throw the reinforcement beacon, one should always remember that teammates are not grenades. Don't throw the reinforcement beacon into enemy bases or hives, such as the bot heavy outpost or the heavy bug nests. Don't throw the reinforcement beacon into bug breaches or dropship drops. If you're being swarmed by enemies, such as Hulks, Berserkers, Hunters, Bile Titans, Chargers, or the like, don't throw the reinforcement beacon at your feet. This can lead to your teammates spawning into a swarm of enemies and a swift death. It's best to throw the beacon away from the fight so that your teammates can decide where to land and how to engage. When preparing to throw the reinforcement beacon, it's important to remember that teammates make great grenades.
Reinforcing!
Heavy. North. 50 meters.
I'm giving her all she's got, laddie. I know! What are we gonna do?
That's empty.
Calling down a sentry!
Toss me. What? Just toss me. Okay, I guess. Wait. What? Don't tell the elf. Who?
Reinforcing. Reinforcements on the way.
Reporting to the front.
High priority target eliminated. Justice served.
If there's a Bile Titan, Charger, or Hulk, throw the reinforcement beacon, then mark the target. This will make it very easy for your teammates to land on that target and destroy them, whereas without the mark, it is very difficult to steer and find that target to destroy. If the team is trying to reach a particular objective or area, or escape an area, it's best to throw the beacon in that direction. For example, at the end of an Eradicate mission, Pelican 1 will come down and land in the middle of the arena. Typically, you would not want to throw your teammates in the middle of the arena, but as you're escaping, you do want to give them the best opportunity to get into Pelican 1. So at this time, it's best to throw the beacon toward Pelican 1. Alternatively, if you're being swarmed by a reinforcement loop, meaning that there's so many enemies that they are just calling in reinforcement after reinforcement, and you're finding yourself in an impossible to escape battle, it is best to try to chain reinforce away from that battle so you can reset. Let's discuss the interaction between the reinforcement drop pod and objectives. When throwing the reinforcement beacon, be mindful of objectives and large mesh structures, such as rock formations and cliffs. Steering is disabled around these structures, so your teammates will not be able to control their drop pods whatsoever. This is a change that was implemented early after the game was launched, as many players were exploiting the ability to steer around these structures. Throwing your teammates toward these structures without the ability to steer can leave them in bad situations that might lead to chain deaths. Landing on teammates. Try not to land on teammates. Visibility and nameplates that aren't showing up can make this quite difficult sometimes. While this can be unavoidable, if it does happen, make sure you reinforce as soon as possible and apologize just as if you team K'd with a weapon or stratagem. Stratagem jammers and ion storms. It's important to take down stratagem jammers as soon as possible. The quickest way to do this is to look for an adjacent fabricator near the spinning jammer structure. A well-placed grenade, autocannon shot, or a rupture shot can accomplish this and end the jam instantly. If you can't do this, approach the jammer structure, clear the base, and when you get to the computer, just before the final segment where you call in a hell bomb, you'll be able to reinforce. You should do this before you call in supplies or the hell bomb to get the team back on its feet. If you have teammates who are dead and you are at the edge of the jammer range, it's actually best to run away from the jammer, get out of the jammer range, reinforce, and then reapproach. For ion storms, unfortunately, the only option is to wait them out. Getting down to the wire. When you reach the point of having low or no reinforcements, it becomes time to change the way you play. Now is the time to play carefully. Now is the time to run away, to be stealthy. You'll need to keep an eye on the reinforcement timer at the upper left of the screen. Typically, this is around 2 minutes for the reinforcement to give you an extra reinforcement. Generally, as soon as that becomes available, you'll want to call it in. Even if there's more than one person up at this point, you still want to continue playing carefully and try to get as many people up, alive, and active as possible. It's best not to take risks during this time, especially if you have things like super samples in play or you're low on time. At the end of the day, Helldivers 2 is an extraction shooter. That means players want to extract regardless of the impact or the rewards. It just feels good for everybody to get out alive, and it impacts the star rating as well. One important thing with everything going on during the extraction period is to save the samples, especially if super samples are in play. While most people might be capped out on super samples, and yes, you may need more commons and rares than anything else, it's kind of a trophy or a rite of passage to get as many super samples out as possible. In order to get everybody out, sometimes you'll have to wait around a little more than usual. Maybe don't jump right onto Pelican 1 as soon as the bay door opens. Maybe wait that extra 10, 20 seconds to throw that reinforcement beacon, because maybe you're out of reinforcements. You have to wait on the reinforcement timer. Maybe you've got a hell pod dropping that wouldn't come down in time if you didn't wait a little while. So be patient and make sure everybody gets out alive. Now, this is not always feasible and may in fact be detrimental on some mission types and some difficulty levels. Things like the Eradicate missions can be extremely hectic at the pickup point, and so it may just be a matter of everyone for himself, get into Pelican 1 no matter what. At the same time, don't call stratagems down on Pelican 1. If you do too much damage to Pelican 1, it will cause him to leave as soon as the first Helldiver enters the ship. Boosters. The boosters related to reinforcing honestly suck. There are two directly related to reinforcement. One is increased reinforcement budget, which gives an additional reinforcement per Helldiver on the team. This kind of is like giving up before you even start. On a full team, it'll take you from 20 reinforcements to 24. So for it to have any use at all, you have to have used at least 20 reinforcements. Then you'll get 4 bonus reinforcements. The next is flexible reinforcement budget, which reduces reinforcements replenish time by 10%. Again, only comes into play if you've used all your reinforcements, and slightly reduces the time it takes to get an additional reinforcement. I would say it has minimal use in something like solo play, but other than that, it's relatively useless. The only other booster that is decent and has some kind of relation to reinforcement, I would say, is the localization confusion booster, which increases the time of enemy reinforcements by 30 seconds for bug breaches and bot drops. That's actually a decent booster, but it is quite a stretch to call that related to reinforcement. I hope you're all more aware of the different factors to consider when reinforcing. If we're all on the same page as a community, our entire experience will be better. If you're still here, thanks for watching, and if you like the content, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.